Okay, let's make a start. So, as always, a nice sort of easing into the practice, the postures, the movements. Whether you're new to this or whether you've got some experience, just give yourself that time and space, and start by just rubbing your hands together and with the pads of your fingers lightly tapping over your face. Just try and loosen your jaw a little bit. It'll be quite refreshing on your face. Start to go up over your head and neck. I tend to use the palms of my hands here. Down to one shoulder. And how the muscles vibrate underneath the tapping. Down the inside of your arm, up the outside. And then across the other shoulder. If there's any difference between one side and another. And then lightly on your back with one hand or with both hands. Around your hips. So we're just trying to settle in, mind and body, to allow circulation of blood and body fluids and energy to begin to build up. Going down the outside of your legs, up the inside. Once again, very light as you go onto your belly. And then the upper part of your chest. Shake out. So, just standing comfortably, we look to have our feet directly below our hips, so not too close together or too wide apart. Let your weight come just a little bit forwards in your feet, and the opposite of that is just to allow your hips to drop back. So there's a slight curve through your knees. I emphasize at this point, it's a slight curve. Bring your attention to this middle part of your body between your hips and your waist, and just begin to turn gently there. Nothing should be forced. We move towards these postures and these movements. Looking for a feeling of your center of gravity dropping towards the ground. Rooting down is one of the most important and certainly one of the primary physical aspects of the Tai Chi posture. There's other aspects to that as well, which we'll obviously look at. But in very broad terms, the lower your center of gravity, the more stable you are, and the less weight you have to carry in the upper part of your body. And this leads us to a very spacious quality in the upper part of the body and a very light movement. As always, we use a great deal of imagery in Tai Chi, and one of my favorite images that apply to this movement is that it's like a weather vane just blowing a light breeze, maybe like a leaf just touched by a light breeze. So hardly any effort required to actually move. The effort goes into making sure you've got the posture and also developing this intention to be in your body, in your mind, to let your thoughts settle, to be more aware of what's happening in your body, and to start to get this sense of the significance of the center part of your body. Again, it's that part of your body that's dropping towards the ground. And when we turn, when we move in the center part of the body, actually that movement affects the whole body. And that's whether we're talking about the very obvious physical movements of muscles, joints. We could be sort of thinking perhaps more about slightly more subtle aspects of breathing, circulation, digestion, all processes that require movement, with even more subtle sense of an underlying dynamic, this sense of the rhythm, the flow, the energy that connects different parts of the the body. And this is one of the aspects of the art that I think we've become increasingly aware of over time. And one of the intentions here should be to really let that underlying dynamic become very harmonious, to remove blockages, to work on things like posture and how we're moving, so that over a period of time there's a freer flow there. And you begin to recognize the significance of this flow, that rhythm of the movement that we begin to move with can be picked up by your breathing, for instance. So our breathing, without having to strain, without having to necessarily focus on it, will just naturally begin to synchronize more with our movements and with our posture. Turn your hands, palm out, raise them up a little bit, no higher than your shoulders, and notice that my elbows are hanging down. When our arms are in a fixed position like this, we can appreciate perhaps a little bit more the significance of the turning in the center of the body and how it moves our arms for us. And so again, we're reminded to focus our attention almost through the lens of the center of the body. And then put your hands straight down. Put one foot forward to keep the width of your step and don't make it too long. Move your weight forwards and backwards. So once again, your center is moving. This time it's moving from foot to foot, also turning. So now we have an additional dynamic, an additional source of energy, which comes from the movement of our weight from one foot to another. Beginning to get a sense of not just the center of the body, but its connection to the ground and how we move from that connection, how we move from the ground. And then have your other foot forwards. So these early exercises that we do help us to recognize and establish fundamentals that we're going to try and cultivate and improve upon through the slower movements. But things like that flow has a certain momentum to it, and it's sometimes easier to feel that momentum when we're moving a bit faster. The rhythm is also perhaps easier to recognize when we're moving a bit faster. And shake out. Come back to the parallel posture. So looking a bit more closely at how we come into this posture, we're looking to find a way of standing that brings us in line with the pull of gravity. If I'm leaning forwards or backwards, I'm necessarily going to strain. I want a posture that brings a degree of stillness that allows gravity to work down through my body, down into my feet, rather than slightly forwards or slightly back. This is a very subtle process, and it's aided by this feeling that we start to get in the body of releasing tightness. But it's a chicken and egg situation, because it's hard to come into line if your body's tight. So along with this idea, we can do a little exercise, just pushing your shoulders up towards your ears and then slowly letting them drop down, noticing the sensation in the muscles of your chest and your upper back. Slowly down. And this is the sensation when we use terms like release, let go, soften, relax in Tai Chi. They're all aspects of the Chinese term song. Other aspects will be things like calm, for instance. So the term can mean any or all of these things, depending on the context. It doesn't really matter what label you put on it at the moment, especially if you're new to this, as long as you can begin to recognize it. Notice that at the end of the movement, as you drop down, your shoulders are stopped. It's like the shoulders are dropping into your rib cage. And now, having discovered that in the upper part of the body, we're going to transfer it once again to the center of the body. So just very gently, this is not meant to be a strong exercise. Maybe just pull your belly in, tighten a little bit across your chest, and then release it. And when I do this, what I notice is that everything starts to release. It's not just my belly, my lower back. I release in my hips. I release in my upper body because it's the center of the body. And significantly, if you watch my knees, I pull my belly in, that tightens my knees. As I release, it just curves slightly. And I get a strong sense of dropping. So going back to this term rooting down, this allowing of our center of gravity to drop towards the ground, this is how it happens. It's through that releasing. There's a slight softening, releasing in the knees, a slight curve in the knees. But we don't necessarily have to bend our knees a lot. And this is important because I think sometimes we can get the impression that rooting down equals knees bending. It's possible to bend your knees and not root down. We do, however, get a deeper sense of the root when our knees can bend a little bit. So this time, as you release, see if you can go a little bit further, letting your hips drop back, and then pushing up. So this has several aspects to it, several benefits to it. One is you will start to condition your legs a little bit. And there's no doubt that even that top position can be quite strong on the legs because of the slight change in posture. So it's good to give yourself a chance to do a movement that begins to condition the muscles of the legs so that this top position becomes more comfortable. The root goes deeper. And in doing so, once again, we experience changes, not just in the legs, but in hips, lower back, belly, maybe even up towards the shoulders. And a third aspect, which is important, is that in sinking down, it's like we prime the legs, we load the legs, and eventually we get pushed up. So again, we get that sense of a movement and energy arising from the ground. But the rooting down isn't just about physical stability, though that is, of course, very important. Seeing if you can once again just let the movement settle into a nice, steady rhythm. Feeling how when your shoulders, when your hips come up, your shoulders go up. When your hips go down, your shoulders go down. And when your shoulders move, your arms will follow. So this time, bringing your hands around as though you're cradling the ball, pushing up, letting the expansion in your body, push your elbows out, turn your hands over, let your hips drop, the shoulders drop, and your hands. So this is the exercise, rooting down. Very simple, just beginning to appreciate the sense of connection from feet up into your hips and your center. From your center up through your back to your shoulders, to the front of your body. And from there into your arms. Try not to lead with your arms. So there's a change in perspective here. Start to view the movement from the ground upwards. Your arms follow that pattern of expansion, contraction, yang to yin to yang. And then the bottom of the movement here, rotate your hands out. So the expansion now, pushing your arms away from your body, just noting how they swing up very, very smoothly. Try not to sort of lift your shoulders up. It's a rotation in your shoulders, not a lifting of your shoulders. So looking for the movement to come once again from the ground up into your upper body, like a wave rising and falling. And then letting your hands cross in front of your belly, sharp elbows coming out, drawing your hands and your fingers around in a nice smooth circle. Noticing any kind of sense that there's a rhythm, a resonance working through your body. We've described the movement in various ways, as though we're moving through water. So your body would be very gently massaged inside. All of these ideas feed in to our intentions. And we start to find that mind and body are not as separate as sometimes we think that they are, that the state of our body can affect our minds, and our awareness and our intentions can affect our movements. One more time. Coming down, take your time, just once again, let your hands curve under and rooting down. So joining these three movements up in a little sequence. Change into the wild goose. And parting the clouds. And just beginning to become aware of subtle changes from one movement to another. Some of you may well have sort of previous experience, be a lot more specific about this, but start with just a general awareness, a curiosity about what the difference is between one movement and another in both mind and body, and how we can bring our intention actively into this process. Patterns of expansion and contractions of the flow of the energy. So we have these three elements of body, mind, and movement, energy, interacting with each other. This is not mind over matter. We're not forcing anything here. We're cultivating these movements. One more round. So just trying to retain this awareness for what's happening within our bodies through these patterns of movement. And then this time, letting your arms hang down, just note the weight of your arms. Bring your attention to one side, and as you push up, that push up expands through one side of your body. Wind your arm around, so you're plucking something off a tree. Pull down, let your hand come all the way down. Bring your attention to the center of your body, then to the opposite side. This is dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Take your time. Once again, at the end of the movement, notice feeling in the center of your body, change to the other side. As you bring your attention to the center of your body, remind yourself of that feeling of releasing in your hips and the belly. Moving as far as you're comfortable moving. I mentioned earlier this idea of a sense of spaciousness within the body. We're always looking to retain that, even at the extent of the movement. Perhaps a feeling that we could have gone a little bit further. Leaving just that space for that internalized movement. One more time. Now, bring your hands so they're lightly touching the outside of your hips and hand or arm, something like that. And then push up, extending gently through your spine, palms of your hands facing up. And then touching again, side of your hips, and then pushing out. So just punctuating the movements with just this moment again of awareness of the center of our bodies. And keep your hands in front of your body slightly. There's often a temptation to lean back. Trying to keep a feeling that your back is longer, broader than the front of your body, supporting the front of your body. Noticing again the sensations in your back. Again, like somebody just gently massaging your back. We don't want to lose that sensation, but we are going to add to the movement. You push out and turn a little bit in the center, and then coming back. Turn the other way. And back. It doesn't matter which way you turn first. And then facing forwards and pushing it. This is simply called pushing in 4 directions. For obvious reasons. Really, again, highlights one of the significant factors about the center of the body. Well, 2 really. One is that the movement expands from there, contracts back to there. And the second is that when we turn, when we rotate the center, once again, as before, notice the effect, particularly on the upper part of the body, but also maybe down into the legs. Moving from our own center, and because our own center has that connection to the ground, moving from the ground. Maybe recalling images like moving through water, as though the air around you were thicker than. Another one that we could apply to this stage of the movement as the arms push out is like stretching out a little elastic band between the hands. These are images that can help us to gradually build a sense of resilience in the movement. It's not just about a free flow. These can also be very strong flows, but it's cultivated. It's the strength of water, not of hard rock. One last time, pushing out sideways. And then once again, we're going to change, but we change through the center. You bring your hands back to the center, then you let them drop down. Then expanding on one side, pushing your arm out, letting it swing up. And again, back down, the center line of your body, sort of maybe just lightly brushing the center. Your hand comes down, and then once again. So this awareness of the center and this intention to punctuate the movement by bringing our attention back to the center helps to prevent a sort of running downhill feeling of constantly finding that we're speeding up. It just puts the brakes on slowly. So it's an important aspect of the art. This time from the top, once again, turning gently in the center of your body. One of the old writings in Tai Chi urges us to seek the stillness within the movement. These practices are as much moving meditation as they are physical exercise, although they are clearly physical exercise as well. We engage, again, mind, body, and energy equally. Now change sides, noticing any difference between one side and another. All the way down, take your time. Pushing out. Again, we're going to turn from the center. And again, you can employ images that begin to cultivate a stronger movement. Particularly people who've been doing this for a while. This is a significant progression. It has to be done very carefully, very patiently. And then just stand for a moment. Give your legs a little shake. It's possible to see developing in Tai Chi and Qigong in a series of stages or steps. One thing I would really sort of urge people, particularly those with more experience, to realize is there's no suggestion here that having taken the first step once, we don't need to take it again. We always go back to the absolute basics. And I sort of touched on this already with the development of this idea of a more resilient movement. The start of the process, just as we started the class here, is always a very loose flowing quality. But with the bringing in these images of things like moving through water, of the air around is a little bit thicker, pushing out the elastic bands, we gradually condition body and energy together We start to use different muscles, different, not just muscles, but different tissues to create the movement. There's an active intention to kind of pull back on the big mobilizing muscles like biceps and triceps to give space to tendons, ligaments, skeletal muscle, and so on. So this is an ongoing process. I sometimes have this feeling, this image that when we're talking about the looseness, when we're talking about the flow, it's like a light breeze brushing over my skin. But as it becomes more resilient, that light breeze begins to feel more like water. That's just a very personal impression. And again, I would emphasize, particularly to those of you with more experience, don't overlook that first step or the second step or whatever. We always come back to that. The significance of the center hopefully is becoming clear to people in various ways. It's said that the center of the body guides, controls, directs the movement. And we can see that with the turning movements that we've done. We can also see it with these next two exercises. Go very carefully with these. They're quite strong exercises. And start just by pushing your hips back a little bit so your pelvis tips. And then let gravity work on your hips, pulling them down again. So there's a small vertical rotation in one direction and then back in the center of your body, particularly your pelvis. And that movement, as you have noticed, is actually affecting your shoulders and your head. When the hips go back, shoulders and head go forwards. When gravity pulls your hips down, your head comes up. And this is really significant, that we don't strain to come to an upright posture. We let gravity do the work. We're going to use this movement in two exercises. I'll try and do the exercises quite big, so that you can see the mechanics of the movement, but go as far as you're comfortable. They're both strong on knees and back. So sink down a little bit, push up, let the movement push your arms out again. As you sink down again, push your hips back and let that draw your head, shoulders and arms forwards. Arms drop down, hips drop back, coming to the upright position. Push up. This is rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. The gentle extension through your back and spine and arms. Remember that quality of spaciousness. That can be quite difficult to maintain with this movement. And the more we're caught up in an idea that we have to move a long way, the more difficult that becomes. We cultivate these aspects so that over a period of time, it's reasonable to expect that you're going to be able to extend your range of movement. But this is not meant to be a stretch. This is rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. And then this time, come back to the upright position, hands in front of your belly. Make a turn, and then push the hips back, push your hands forwards. Your hips come across, and then down, and then back to the beginning. It's called polishing the table. The movement in the center of your body, drawing your arms and hands around in a nice smooth circle. Show you from the back so you can see what my hips are doing. Again, this is exaggerated. Hips go back and then they come across, and then gravity pulls them down. I turn back to them, and then in the other direction. Polishing the table. Try not to stiffen up in your arms or your fingers. One more in each direction. And then just come to standing, still with that feeling of your hips dropping back. So allowing gravity to pull your hips down and hence to bring your head upright. Allowing your center of gravity to drop. So again, just taking away some of the need for tightness and stiffness in the body. Remembering that releasing feeling. And remembering that feeling of the shoulders dropping into your rib cage and recognizing that our skeleton from inside continues to support us, even without stiffness and tightness, especially without stiffness and tightness in the soft tissue of the body. And shake out. So we begin to recognize how we can support ourselves without tightness, without stiffness. We have this capacity for inner strength, for inner resilience. And I talked about the skeleton there. The skeleton is an important part of this. And this helps us to cultivate a sense of softness externally. There's a saying strongly associated with Tai Chi and Qigong. It says that outside there should be the softness of cotton, because cotton is a very soft material, but very resilient. But inside is the temper of steel. Steel is a metal, so it's quite hard, but in metallic terms, it's apparently quite soft. So there's this kind of blending, if you like. One way that I like to think of this is if I take this bottle with water in it, you can see, and I push my finger in a little way, there's virtually no resistance. If I push in further and further, I meet more and more resistance. But it's never hard. It's never stiff. It's not like pushing my finger into a wall. And these are the kind of ideas, the kind of images that we begin to hold in our intention in Tai Chi, and that are gradually cultivated and become physical realities for us. Now, have your feet just a little bit wider apart and turned out, and moving your weight from one foot to another. You're going to about 60% of your weight in each leg, so it's not a big movement. This is one reason why we have the feet a little bit wider apart when we do this. Come across into your left leg and just gently push your right knee forwards. So that will raise the heel of your right foot and you'll be able to move across a little bit more. You want to get your head directly above your foot. Move across, push the left knee forwards, settle into your right leg. This time, as you settle into your left leg, turn to your left. Very gentle turn. Come across into your right and turn. Hands by the sides of your body. Once again, just maybe lightly touching your center. And this time, as you go across and turn to your left, let that movement push your arm forwards and notice again how it swings up. Turn the hand palm down, come back to the center, bringing the hand down, and then moving into your right. And this time it's the left hand that gets pushed out, and again it swings up. Both hands turn, left hand palm down, right hand palm up. This is a movement forward, hitting a ball in front of the shoulder. Don't anticipate the rotation. Wait until you get onto the leg. Rotate your arms. And the image, the intention behind this is of a very dynamic and quite strong movement. So once again, we have this idea that from that very soft flowing quality and without losing that aspect of the art, we develop this more resilient, stronger quality. And this is not a strength that relies on the tightness of the muscles. Remember that underlying flow of the energy. Think of a wave on a beach rising up from your legs through your body, and allow space for that wave to move into your arms and your hands. And if you're holding your back tight, if you're holding the muscles of your arms tight, if you don't give the wave that space, it will get blocked. So hitting the ball in front of the shoulder. Notice there is a very strong tendency for our arms to take over the movement. Weight moves, we're rooting down, we get that sense of the movement from the ground. The center moves across and turns. We feel the patterns of expansion, contraction through the sides of our body once again, like with Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. And our arms are moved by the combination. We want that sense of the flow of the movement to permeate the whole body, including the big muscles like biceps and triceps. If you've started to hold them tight, once again, this is not going to happen. One more time on each side. Now, one foot forward again. The step here is, or the stance is square roughly, hip width and about the same in length, maybe a little bit longer if you're beginning to get that feeling of being able to drop your hips. Once again, beginning to transfer your weight, giving yourself time to reflect on this. This is not just forwards and backwards, but there's a little moment once again when we allow ourselves to settle into our supporting leg each time. So the direction of the movement changes. We go forwards and down, backwards and down. Making that connection to the ground again in our intention. Feeling that as we do that, once again, we prime the legs. Imagine if you were doing this on a trampoline or a bouncy castle. You would wait until you felt the push. And then you'd direct the push into the other leg. And then you wait again until you feel the push. So again, we get this sense of a movement and energy arising through our legs and our feet from the ground. This helps us to maintain our root because there's a very good chance that in the transition from one leg to another, you kind of come up a bit. You've lost that sense of stability that comes with the root. Also in that moment, this time go into your front leg and again, push the other knee forward so your heel comes up. And again, there's a slight shift so you become more in line. This time raise your toes, becoming more in line over the rear leg. So it's a tricky process, this, but we start to get an intuitive grasp of what it feels like to be in alignment, to be rooted. And then from that position, rooting down through one leg, bring your foot in, step out. If it's the front foot, you put the heel down, You lower the ball of the foot, you gently press the foot in to the ground, move the weight forwards. Notice I've got my front foot turned out here, just a little bit. Push back is when you go back, it's the ball of the foot, then the heel, then the press. You plant the foot. So before we move the weight, we just want to feel that connection to the ground. I sometimes describe it as though we're walking on thin ice, and you place the foot, test the ice, and then, if it's appropriate, move the weight. Shake it. Try this with the other foot forwards. Beginning to transfer your weight, moving from the ground, but also, again, employing an image like moving through water and feeling if that has any effect on the upper part of the body. So our field of awareness, our degree of awareness expands. Quite often, our awareness and our intentionality are really focused into one part of the body, often arms and hands. They tend to be dominant. Here, we're talking about an expansion of that awareness to include our feet and our legs, the connection to the ground. And in fact, to feel that they are the primary connections, not that the arms aren't important, but they come later in the process. Beginning to raise toes and heel. So when we use terms like being grounded, being centered in Tai Chi, these are not metaphors. They're felt physical experiences. And one of the effects of this is that we do start to feel more grounded in our minds. We do begin to really appreciate that sense of calmness, of stillness that comes from the grounding. And we're able to increasingly, I find, I may feel I'm able increasingly to find that I can maintain that a little bit in movement. Stepping in. Take your time. And then bring your foot in and take a step through. You go forwards or backwards, depends where you have the room. But either way, the foot comes in, forwards or backwards, and then out. Maintain the width of the step. And then changing direction. Remembering those slight moments of settling in so that we're gradually learning how to sustain those qualities of calmness and stillness. Well, at the very least, when we lose them, we're learning how to bring them back. And then bring your feet down. Perhaps one of the great lessons in Tai Chi for us, one of the great takeaways. Have your right foot forward, so mirroring my movements. Start with your weight in your back foot, push forwards again, and as you settle in your front foot, just let your arms swing through and back. Once again, we're not trying to lift the arms. They swing out from the body, they naturally curve up. This is called fisherman castanet. That wave-like flow through the body, once again, moving your arms for you, rather than feeling that you have to strain in your shoulders. Once again, aware of the changes, the patterns of movement within your body, that fluid massaging quality we've noted before. Once again, our attention encompassing not just our arms and our hands, but the whole of our body, from the soles of our feet to the crown of our head, to the tips of our fingers. Fisherman cast the net. So we're facing forwards, we're moving forwards and backwards, our arms are swinging forwards and backwards. Yeah, lovely simple formula. But this time, as you come back, turning, bringing your hands across your body, they curve down, let them swing up a little bit higher, expanding in that rear side of your body. Turn the hands palm forwards, go forwards and turn. So the movement, drawing your hands across your hips and then expanding in that right side of your body and then move it back. Tracing a double circle or figure of eight movement in the air in front of you. Sometimes it can be helpful to imagine that shape and imagine your body flowing through that shape. Combining the movement of your weight from the ground through your legs, rotation in your center, with these patterns of expansion and contraction within your body. When you find yourself sort of fumbling a little bit in your arms and your hands, take that as an indication that you need to bring your attention back to your feet. Good. And then just do those two movements with the left foot forwards. So, fisherman cast the net. Forward position, this time changing once again to the figure of eight, going into your back, turning, and then turning into the front. Now just turn the front foot out very slightly. Or you could do this going backwards as well. As you turn, bring the empty foot in, step out, plant the foot, and then move the weight, bringing your hands down. Turning, raising the hand, bringing the foot in, planting the foot, and transfer the weight. And change direction. Very particular about positioning and the planting of your foot. Don't hurry this. Giving yourself time to settle in to the leg each time. Now, changing direction again. And maybe you don't have to do this, but as your foot comes in and your hands come up, just raising the knee, step out. As you raise your knee, try and just again remember that feeling of your hips dropping back. It helps you both to remain upright and to root down. Now we're going to change direction again. And moving your feet back and shake it. Good. So I mentioned earlier about how Tai Chi can teach us how to recover these qualities of stillness, of calmness, of being rooted, aligned and centered. All of these things are so easily lost in our lives, and yet so important to us. These little moments of settling in mind and body and energy can have a huge significance. So in this last exercise, there's a real emphasis on what it is that actually helps us to do that. Standing with your feet parallel again, let your hips sink, pushing up. This is called Embrace Tiger, Return to Mountain. So we expand out, but then everything starts to gradually and gently draw in. And I find it very useful to see if I can identify certain elements that are helpful for this process of returning. These are little images, ideas, memories that you can take out of the session with you. Begin to make use of in your daily life. It's very personal. I'm not going to tell you what I think it should be. So you can find your own sort of reminder. Embrace Tiger, return to the mountain. Do one more of these. Let your hands drop down to your sides after this. Some people like to let their hands rest on their bellies. Just coming back to standing and to stillness. Thank you very much, everybody. Do please get in touch if you have any questions, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.